It's good to see you guys today. My name's Nate. I'm a pastor around here, and it is an honor to be with you today as we're kicking off this brand new series called The Family Table. You know, the family table for generations in the history of our culture has played a huge role. The family table that we maybe have seen in our parents' home, our grandparents' home, and their homes before that, it was central to a lot of the things that were moving families. They were getting things going together. We would gather around for meals or events. We would gather around. We would gather around these tables to have big conversations, to talk about things that were important to the family. And unfortunately, I believe over the years, it's began to not play as big of a role. Families aren't necessarily gathering around to have the conversations that they need to have. And so this series is really all about the idea that we all have a table that we come to. Whether it's our families that we're here or in our workplaces, in our churches, in our communities, there's a table that we come to. We all bring something to the table. We all do. Each and every one of us brings something. And through this series, we want to consider what we are bringing to the table. What we are bringing to our family tables, what we're bringing to our churches and our homes. What are we bringing? I think it's important for us to grab a hold of the fact that we here, as a church, we're a family. As believers and followers of Jesus, we are brothers and sisters. We are a family, and we all bring something to this table. You know, and it's interesting when you think about our tables that we gather around, especially around this time of year, right? Around our holiday season. Maybe you're excited for gathering around the holiday table. Maybe you're not. Because when we gather around with family, there's some things that we can control and things that we can't control, right? We have people in our family that maybe we're not that excited to see, right? Maybe you've got that one uncle, right? It just seems to stir stuff up, right? Maybe you have that, I don't know, that relationship with a brother or sister, or maybe it's an in-law. There's some tension there, and it's always uncomfortable. Maybe it goes unsaid, but you just know, like, there's just something there, right? And maybe you don't realize that. Maybe you don't necessarily sense that or see that that's taking place, because maybe you're that person. Whoa, right? But the reality is that we have tables that we gather around, and we need to gather around because important things need to be talked about. Important events need to be planned. Important meals need to be shared with one another. These are the things that we are able to do with one another. And when we're churches, when we realize that we're a family, it's important to realize what we bring to the table, because how we are as a family affects not only us, but those that are around us. It affects others and how they see God. Jesus spoke of this in John 13, 34 through 35. He said, "A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." What Jesus says is that the way that you love one another will show people that you belong to me. The way that you love each other, doing it well, will show that you're a follower of me. And so through this series, we'll be using Paul's letter to the Romans, a specific chapter in chapter 12, but also really just broken down a small piece of that chapter. But we're going to be challenged with what we bring to the table. Whatever table that may be, wherever that table may be, what we bring to the table, what we're bringing, we want it to be something that honors the God who has provided all that we can be thankful for, all that we should be thankful for. And we will delve into the various elements of our lives that we should be bringing to the table: our love, our compassion, our hospitality, our forgiveness, and our unity. And today we'll discover together we'll discover how these elements can serve as beacons that point us and others towards Jesus, that gets us to where we need to go. If you were here at the beginning of September, we were charged as a church body We were charged by Pastor Byron and Gail where they said, hey, listen, we believe that this piece in Romans chapter 12 is important on how we go forward, how we care for each other, how we care for others, how we conduct ourselves as people, and how we're seen by others around us, and is what is experienced from us. And so before we get into this piece of chapter 12, I need to start at the beginning of chapter 12, because this gives us an idea of where Paul is really coming from when he's writing to these Romans. He starts in verse 1, it says this, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God, because all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." What Paul is saying is, because all that God has done for you, from where God has brought you to this place that you are today, to realize that there is a purpose and a plan for you, to know that there's more to you than what you've ever thought or have known or have even imagined. Because of all that he has done, he's asking just to offer yourselves, your bodies, your being as a holy and living sacrifice, that this is your true proper worship. This is how you would choose to worship him, by giving over your life to him. And through that, and through giving your life over to him and offering yourself, your whole body to him, he will then change you. He will change the way you think. He will change the way you see this world around you. He will change your perspective in this world. And you allow that change, if you allow that change, it'll cause you to be different from the world. It'll cause you to act differently. It'll stop you. He says, don't fall into the typical customs, the typical behaviors of this world. That there's a way to go about this because of what he's done for you, because of who he is, because of what he's doing inside of you. Your actions should not show the same thing that how the world would respond. And so with that in mind, the question that we need to ask ourselves is this: what do we bring to the table? What do we bring to our family table? What do we bring to the table that's placed before our church? What do we bring to the table that's placed in our workplace? What do we bring to the table? What are we bringing? And so today, what we're going to dig into is what we're bringing to the table is this. We're going to bring peace. We're going to bring peace to the table. Whew. When you think about holidays, boy, that's tough, isn't it? That I'm going to want to be the one that brings peace to the table? Everybody else is bringing, yams and turkey, and I'm bringing peace, baby. Whew. That's a big calling. It's an important calling, though, because honestly, when it comes to what we see with the world is often we just bring hostility and anger and fighting. But peace is what we're called to bring. So peace, one thing I want to state, the big idea for this message would be this, is that peace as an offering, something that we are giving, peace as an offering provides a benefit to us that we can't supply on our own. And we're going to get to what that means as we move on. You'll see it begin to unfold. But peace as an offering, something that we bring to the table, something that we give, not only are we giving it, but it offers something greater for us than what we could ever provide for ourselves. So let's get into that piece of scripture that we're going to use. We're going to be in Romans chapter 12, and these verses are 14 through 16. Now we're going to use the Message version in this, just because it's fun the way it speaks. All right. So this you'll probably recognize these words from a couple months ago, but it says this. It says, "Bless your enemies." No cursing under your breath. Laugh with your happy friends when they are happy. Share tears when they are down. Get along with each other. Don't be stuck up. Make friends with nobodies. Don't be the great somebody. So what Paul has been stating in the beginning of this, if we rewind back to the front end of it, he says, because of what Christ has done for you, what he has given for you, what he has offered for your life, how he has changed you, what this looks like to live in this world, these are the characteristics that we begin to see. To be a follower of me, to be a great representative of me, he starts with this: bless your enemies. I mean, come on. Bless your enemies? I can understand don't cuss out my enemies, right? That makes sense. But bless my enemies? To bless my enemies? I mean, so what does that mean? When we look at the Webster dictionary definition of what bless means to hallow. It means to consecrate. It means to invoke divine care for, to praise, to glorify, to speak well of, to protect, preserve, endow, favor. No way. Right? I mean, think about that. You want me to favor my enemy? You want me to give favor to my enemy? You want me to praise? You want me to speak well of? You want me to invoke divine care for? Really? Really? Like that's what you want from me? And what he's stating is, listen, I told you what has been done for you is unlike what the world has done, what the world offers. And all I'm asking for you is to do the same. Is that what you offer to this world, what you offer is going to be something that it does not reflect what the world would normally do. Because that does not reflect how the world would say, hey, treat your enemies. Right? It's not to bless them. It's not to praise them. It's not to speak well of. That's not what it's supposed to look like. But he says, but it's different for you. Because what has been done for you is different. In fact, Jesus speaks of this in Matthew chapter 5, verse 46. He says, if you love only those who love you, what reward is there for that? Even corrupt tax collectors do that much. He's saying, listen, it's easy to love those that love you. That's easy, right? That's an easy thing to do. Somebody who loves you and treats you well, it's really easy to love them. Anybody can do that. Murderers can do that. Tax collectors can do that. The worst of the worst can do that. But you are not them. Something greater has been done on your behalf. You are not the same as you used to be. And so what you should do is going to be completely different than what the world is going to do. I want you to love and bless those who don't do that for you. That's the greater story. That's the greater testimony. Because you are different. Anyone can love someone who loves them. But to love someone that hates you, well, that's not normal. It's not normal. But what has been done on our behalf is not normal. That Christ would give his life as a ransom for ours. That he would give all his blood, all his breath for us is not normal. That's not normal. But yet that's what has happened for us. He loved us first. Don't forget that. That Jesus, that God, he loved you first. Even when you have been an enemy to him. Even when you have done the things and said the things that you have said about him. He loved you first. He loved you first. So he says, bless your enemies. This is something that goes back. I mean, we see this with David. David tells, in the 23rd Psalm, he's talking about how the Lord is his shepherd, has led him through these dark places. That he has guided him. He has protected them. He has anointed him. He has loved him as he is in his broken state. And he even has prepared a table in the midst of his enemies. That even in the midst of his enemies, the Lord is preparing a table to feast at. So what does that look like? I mean, so what does blessing look like, right? Like how do we tangibly do that in our lives? So where does it start? I want to finish. I want to go back to that. Bless your enemies, but that second part of that is incredibly important. Bless your enemies. No cursing under your breath. No cursing under your breath. What does that mean? It means be aware how you're talking about these people. Be aware of what you have to say about them. Like, I can bless my enemies, but the idea that when they walk away, like it's pretty easy not to cuss them out or say things about them when they're in front of me, right? When they're right in front of me, no big deal. But when they walk away, oh, baby, come on now. I got something to talk about. I got something to talk about. Let me tell you, when we tell our loved ones, we tell our friends, we tell those that are closest to us, we tell our coworkers, we start talking about those individuals. But here's something that you have to realize. Your words have the power of life and death. Your words have the power of life and death. What you say means something, whether somebody is present or not. Whether someone is present or not. When you begin to speak ill of someone, whether it's to somebody else or it's just by yourself or you're mumbling under your breath about someone, it matters. It matters because those words go out. And we live in we have a very spiritual realm that's around us. And when we speak those things out, the enemy is very aware. The devil's very aware of the things that we're saying. And what we end up doing when we start to say things about people, when we start to gossip about them, when we start to speak ill about them, we begin to partner with the dark forces of this world. We play a part in that when we do that. So when he says, hey, no cursing under your breath, he's saying, hey, speak well of, bless them, right? Speak well of someone. Not only that, I think part of that too is that we need to be willing to pray for our enemies, who we would consider our enemies. That we would pray for them. When we would speak well of them, we would pray for them as well. That we would search for them to experience blessings in their life. And I'm not talking about, I can pray for my enemy. Lord, could you just please change John, please? Lord, he is a jerk. And Lord, do something in him, Lord, so that I can feel better about us. God, do something in that. No. That's not real. That's a selfish prayer right there. The type of prayer I'm talking about is intercessing on their part, seeking that God would bless them in ways that don't make sense. Lord, I know I don't like John very much, but Lord, I love him. And Lord, would you just please bless him, Lord? Whatever he puts his hand to, would you just please bless him? Lord, my prayer would be that he would find divine favor in his life. Lord, his heart would begin to change. Lord, that he would begin to see that you, Lord, are the answer to all of it. Lord, help me to see him differently. Help me to be somebody who can help him. Lord, that's praying for your enemies. That's praying. Not only are you inviting God into it, it's changing the way you see people. It's changing your perspective. Prayer is more about changing you than it is changing the circumstance. It's more about you being able to change your perspective. That's real prayer of blessings right there. That's how you begin to change the way that you see one. This is how you begin to bless your enemies, is through that prayer. So we pray for them. Then how else do we bless them? We invite them to our table. We invite them in. We invite them. We sit across for them, because here's the reality. It's real easy to talk about somebody and not care for somebody and consider them an enemy when I don't sit across from them. But when I sit down across from someone, when we're face to face, I begin to see people differently. I actually see them as people. I begin to see they're an actual human being. When I have conversations with them, when we talk, when I ask about them, when I genuinely seek to care for them, I begin to see them differently. They become human. They become someone who is loved by God, who the same God who gave his life for me gave his life for them. And then I can see them differently. It would change my perspective on who they are. Now listen, when I say that you invite them to your table, does that mean you need to invite them into your house? No, not a bad idea. Because here's the thing. This table, this family table that we have, it goes wherever we go. It's portable, right? It goes into our places of work. It goes into those lunchrooms. It goes into our schools. It goes into our communities. It goes to our city council meetings, right? It goes wherever we go. And we bring something to it. And what we do is we invite somebody else to bring something to it. And we sit down and we seek. We do what's next is we become empathetic. We begin to see who they are. Empathetic by definition is to understand. It is to be aware. It is to be sensitive to. Most of the time, our enemies, who we consider enemies, the relationships and circumstances that seem divided, are usually just a misunderstanding. But we're too afraid to sit across from somebody and actually see them and have a conversation about what's really going on. Many times it's much bigger than what we've ever made it. It's just, that's the way I made you feel? Oh, I didn't know that. Right, to sit across from somebody changes things. When we start to try to understand, when we want to seek who they are, understand why they do the things they do. When we do that, we see them differently. They no longer become our enemies. They now become people that we love and care for and compassionate towards. Because not everybody's life stacks up the same way. We're all the same. We're all searching for the same thing, whether we know it or not. But when we don't understand the way somebody behaves, many times we just choose to distance ourselves instead of going, what's going on here? What's really happening in this person? And to realize that it's not that they want the same things that we want. We just don't see that. So to be empathetic, to understand. And this goes back to that other piece of it, not just our enemies, but with our friends. It says in there to laugh with your happy friends when they're happy. Share tears when they're down. To get along with each other. But honestly, we need to be empathetic with our friends too. We need to be good friends. We need to be good friends. I'm going to be honest. I'm not always a great friend. I'm not. I need to be better than that. But we need to be good friends with people. That's what we need to bring to the table. Try to understand what's going on. Be engaged in their life. To laugh when they're happy and they're laughing. To cry when they're crying. With that in mind, it means we need to be aware of something. We need to be aware of the time that what people are experiencing, the seasons of people's life, what they're going through. These are things that we need to just be aware of, right? Because there's a season for everything. When I read the scripture, it takes me to Ecclesiastes 3, written by Solomon. Ecclesiastes was written by Solomon as a cautionary tale for people who are searching for what life really means and pursuing all these other things in life. What Solomon says at the end of this, as he's pursued all these different avenues of what it looks like to experience life as it's supposed to be experienced, the conclusion that he came to, and most of it is all just chasing after the wind. It's meaningless. It's nothing. That all that pursuit of all these things that ultimately end up causing division within us, causing friction within us, it's all meaningless. But he says in Ecclesiastes, he says, hey, there's a time for everything. And everyone has this time for them. There's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, and a time for war and a time for peace. That there is time, that everyone has seasons that they're going through. And to be aware that there are seasons that people are going through, to be attuned to that and to engage in that. To be that friend who's laughing with their friends who are laughing because things are good. And that friend who's crying with their friends because things are they're rough right now. To be that friend is an incredible thing. It brings peace to wherever you are in those moments. You can't solve anything. You can't make it better, but you can be there. And you can be a part of it. And that means more than anything. It means more than anything. There's a time for everything, but not everything is meant for any time. What I mean is that be aware of what people are going through and don't discount it. Don't expect them to move through it quickly because because it makes you uncomfortable and you want to move through it quickly. Allow it to be what it is. Be engaged with one another. There's a time for everything. The last piece I would say is, do not be conceited. Romans 12:16 says this in the New International Version. It says, live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not be conceited. Choose to live in harmony with one another. Choose to see people for who they are made to be. See, many times we see people for who they are. We see for the cover of the book, right? We just see the cover of a book and we just assume that that's who that person is. That's what they have to offer. But the reality is that's not true because God made them. God has something greater for them. And they just need people to show up and to help them see that there's something for them. There's something greater for them. Don't be conceited. To associate with the people of low position is be willing to befriend someone whose relationship may not present tangible benefits for you. That because choosing to be a friend with somebody who has nothing to offer you. You're saying that's a big deal. But there's not necessarily any return in this friendship. That we wouldn't allow our position or our status to be something that would cause us to go, well, I can't befriend that person. But isn't that exactly what Jesus did? It's exactly what Jesus did. He came back for the lowly. He came back for those that were on the fringes of society. He came back to the place and spent time with the people that nobody wanted to spend time with. He came back and he not only did he come and spend time with them, but he gave them purpose. He gave them life. And all he's asking for us is to do the same thing. Is that we would invite people to our table who don't have really anything to offer at that time. They may not have anything to offer at that time, but I'm telling you, they're going to have something to offer. Because we all do. Because Christ has put something within us. God has put something within us that is meant for his kingdom. It's meant for great things. And everyone has that. They just need people to help them see it. They just need people to invite them to a table so that they can see it, so that it can be revealed to them. It's a simple statement that he's just saying, hey, listen, don't be conceited. That's not what you were created for. At the beginning of this message, I told you that there was that peace as an offering provides a benefit to us that we can't supply on our own. And here's what I mean by this. Matthew chapter 5, verse 9, Jesus makes this statement. He says, Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. I want to stop for just a moment because we need to differentiate something here. Because there's a huge difference between when we think peace, our idea of peace is that it's calm, there's not chaos, there's no tension. That's what we search for. That's what we desire after, right? But what that really is, many times we find ourselves being peacekeepers. We find ourselves being the people that go, we're just not going to talk about this. Let's move on. We're not going to talk about this. We want to sweep things under the rug. We don't want to pull things out in the light. We don't want to have the conversations that are difficult to have because we would just much rather it be peaceful. We would much rather be peaceful, but that's not what he's saying. Jesus is not saying that. In fact, he's saying you need to be peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. Peacemakers enter into the situations where there is contention, where there's frustration, where there is strife and there's struggle, and they go, there's a way through this. There's a way through this. God has offered us a way through this. I may not have the solution, but I'm going to bring people together. Because listen, you got people in your head right now, don't you? You got people in your head that may be in your family, people that you may encounter in these holidays, people you may work with. There's people in your minds going, oh, Ain't no way I'm making peace with that person. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. It's a simple statement. He's saying, hey, listen. Jesus' statement is simply says, make peace, and you'll be recognized as a child of God. I will recognize you as a child of God. Not only will I recognize you as a child of God, but the people around you are going to recognize you as a child of God. You will be recognized as a child of God. You'll be seen as different. When you choose to make peace, you will be recognized as a child of God. And listen, a child of God, there's insurmountable benefits to this, right? There's no better 401k, right? There's no better life insurance policy. There's nothing better than being a child of God. He offers things that we can't offer ourselves, that we can't do. He's the one that offers it. And what he's saying is, hey, listen, if you get in the mess and you make an effort to bring people together. See, Jesus came as a peacemaker. He came as a peacemaker. He came to bring heaven to earth so that people may be reconciled in their relationship with God. There was a whole purpose for Jesus giving his life, is so that people could have a right relationship with their heavenly Father, whom they have ignored, whom they have walked away from, with whom they have been an enemy to. He came so that they may be reconciled to that. So what I'm saying is that I believe that God believes that relationships are of the utmost importance, and they need to be reconciled. So the people that you have in your mind, guess what? Somebody else can handle that, right? Come on, that's our response typically, isn't it? Like, oh Lord, we want to pray for somebody. Lord, I want that to change for them. Lord, put somebody in their path. But aren't you in their path? It's not fun, is it? But friends, that's what we've been called to. There's relationships that need mended, that need to be at least attempted to be reconciled. I'm not saying you're the one that makes it happen, because you're not. You don't have that kind of influence. What I'm saying is, if you can bring people to the table and you bring peace to the table, let God take care of the rest. Let God take care of the rest. Let him get the glory in all of this, because he's the one that deserves it anyways. He's the one that's made the way in it. And he's just inviting us into it. We have been brought into, when we have said yes to Jesus, that we're following after Jesus, he has commissioned us into the ministry of reconciliation. That first and foremost, people may be reconciled to their heavenly Father. And second most, that people would be reconciled with one another. That's what we've been called into. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? What a great challenge that is. This holiday season, to realize, like, I'm going to go to a table where there's contention there, where there's frustration, where there's tension, where people really, honestly, they're just showing up because that's what they have to do. And we get the opportunity to bring peace to it. You don't have to have all the wisdom and knowledge. You just have to have love. Love changed everything, friends. It changed everything. It changed you. It changed me. It was to change the world around us. We just invite Jesus to the table with us. I'm telling you, watch what takes place. So how do we make peace? How do we do this? We invite people to the table. We invite them to the table, and we bring all that God has given us. All that we do know, all that we have experienced. We place them at the table. We sit across from someone. We watch God work. There's nothing better, friends. There's nothing better to be engaged in and to be able to do is to watch God work on our behalf. So let that be your challenge today, in the days to come, as you enter into these holiday moments. Who's one? You don't have to be a bunch. What's that face? What's that face that you have in mind? What's that name you have in mind? and seek to find ways that you can make peace in whatever way you can. Watch what God does. Let me pray for you.